Good evening and welcome back to 31 Horror Nights. It's October 26th and tonight's movie is The House of the Devil. First off, that title does not match this movie at all. You'd think it would be a haunted house movie with that, but it's not. It's sort of like The Taking of Deborah Logan. It's not really a lie, but it's definitely misleading. The House of the Devil is a 2009 horror movie directed by Ty West, and is most notable for having the sound, feel, and look of an 80s or 70s movie. And they nailed that aesthetic. I would not have guessed that this came out in 2009. I would have thought that this was a horror movie from the 80s or 70s. One that wasn't very good. I'm giving this one a 5 out of 10. I didn't hate it, there wasn't anything that was just awful about it, but it was just really clumsy and poorly paced. It's not Willow Creek, but they definitely do sort of drag their feet to get things started. It got better once things started happening, but they took way too long to actually get to that. The plot of The House of the Devil is that it's the 80s, and there's this college sophomore named Sam who just bought a new house and wants to pay the first check, but she doesn't have the money. So she looks around for jobs and she finds a babysitting gig. So she goes there, and her friend drives her there, and immediately they're both kind of weirded out by the place. It's a creepy man and a creepy woman living in a creepy house, and they also lied by saying that it was a babysitting job. Really, she's watching the mother of the woman who lives there. But they offer a lot of money for the job, so Sam decides to take it anyway, despite all the red flags. The plot of The House of the Devil is definitely a callback to slasher movies of yesteryear, like Halloween or Black Christmas. And that's what I would say The House of the Devil is. It's more of a slasher movie than it is supernatural, although there are definitely supernatural elements in it. Once again, I would like to say that they absolutely nailed the aesthetic. It looks, sounds, and feels just like a movie from the 70s or 80s. But that's not enough to actually carry a movie. The acting is good, and the cinematography is good. You do get a couple good shots of this house, but for the most part, there's just way too much nothing going on. A lot of the movie is just the babysitter, Sam, walking around the house and like looking around corners, examining things, and a lot of it is just waiting for something to actually happen. Now, it is more visually interesting than what happened in Willow Creek, but it's still pretty uneventful. It picks up a little once things actually begin to happen, but you gotta wait a while for that. One thing I noticed with The House of the Devil is that there are just a lot of really pointless scenes. Sam and her friend go to the house and they both sit down on the couch, and the owner wants to talk to Sam in private, so they go into another room. And then there's like this little scene of Sam's friend like eating, I don't even know what they are, like cookies or candies or something in like a bowl on the table, and she doesn't like the first one, but she eats the second one, and that scene was just there and gone, and obviously had no impact on anything. There was also a part later in the movie where Sam is exploring the house, and she goes to the bathroom and she pulls back the shower curtain, and they did one of those things where the like loud music, the jump scare music, starts before you can actually see what we're supposed to be scared of, but once they show it, it's just a bunch of dark hair in the shower. That doesn't really come into play at any other point in the movie. The movie is already padded out enough as it is. I don't see why they needed to add some completely pointless scenes that do nothing except for add to the running time. When you compare it to something like The Strangers, which I did way at the beginning of this month, that movie took about as long for like the real peril to start, but it knew to put things in the time before that to keep the audience interested. There are some surprises along the way, but it is still a pretty standard slasher plot with a lot of nothing happening in it. I really liked the look of the movie, and once things started up, it wasn't bad at all, but I just didn't find this a very interesting or enjoyable experience. It was mostly just on the bad side of meh for me. Now let's talk about a few spoilers. One thing that they make sure to establish is that that night is the night of a lunar eclipse. It's like a solar eclipse, except not quite as spectacular. It's where the moon goes completely inside the Earth's shadow, so instead of the sun disappearing behind the moon, you essentially have the moon disappearing in the sky. One thing they did that actually genuinely surprised me, it was a very big shock when they did it, is that It's right after the friend leaves the house. She's Sam's ride, so she was going to come back at the end of the night to pick her up. But she goes somewhere to like pull over and have a smoke for a second. And then this completely random guy comes up to her and like strikes up a conversation. And then at one point he just asks, "Are you the babysitter?" And then she starts saying, "No, I'm her friend. I'm just her ride." And then before she could even finish her sentence, the guy takes out a gun, shoots her in the head, and her brain splatters against the windshield. I'm sure my reaction was a lot like the reaction a lot of people had seeing Psycho for the first time, especially when it was being released. There was no indication that deaths were going to start up that quickly, and it absolutely blindsided me to see the movie go from 0 to 100 like that. But once the shock of that wears off, you basically still have, 20, 30 minutes before anything really starts to happen. Before he leaves, the owner of the house, gives Sam some extra money and says that there's a number on the fridge for her to call for pizza when she gets hungry later in the night. And I actually do have to give this movie credit. He says it 3 times, but they legitimately made me think he was just being forgetful and scatterbrained. But obviously, there was a reason why he wanted to make sure that she was aware of that. Because later on, when she actually gets the pizza, the guy who delivers it to her is the same random stranger who shot her friend earlier. The pizza is drugged, so she passes out, and when she wakes up, she's tied down in the basement on this big pentagram on the floor. It turns out the family were a bunch of Satanists, and they were just using her and the lunar eclipse for some sort of ritual. They don't actually make it clear what the ritual is until it's implied what it is at the very end. But it's a bunch of weird stuff, like drawing shapes on her with blood, making her drink blood out of, a cow's skull. And you actually do see the mother of the man and woman in the house that they kept talking about. You never actually saw her at the beginning, but she's this disgusting, disfigured, zombie thing. And she is pretty scary. That was some good makeup. It's also revealed that the mysterious stranger who shot Sam's friend and gave Sam the drugged pizza was also in the cult. I think that they're implying that he's the son of the man and woman. They talked about having a son that was full grown. So yeah, things look bad for Sam, but she manages to escape, and she even does kill a few of the members of the family. When she actually gets out of the house and runs away, the only one left following her is the man who originally sent out the babysitting offer. And they go to a cemetery, and then he starts talking about how their lord and master chose her. And ever since the ritual ended, there was these weird flashes you see in her head of the mother zombie woman. I think that she puts together that she is carrying the Antichrist at that point, so she shoots herself in the head before the lunar eclipse could end. But I think that what they were going for was that supernatural forces made the lunar eclipse end really quickly, so that her suicide attempt doesn't work. Even though she shoots herself in her head, you see her alive at a hospital, and a nurse says it was really unlucky, she was really sad, but at the end she pats her on the stomach and says, "You'll both be okay," and then she walks away. So obviously the implication here is that she is about to give birth to the Antichrist, and there really isn't anything that she could do about it. House of the Devil has some good moments, but for the most part, it's just not a very impressive movie to me. I feel like this director could do better stuff, but this just was not the film for me. I'll see you tomorrow.